Or any other comments?
I think you might fix it.
Good.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, we'll go ahead and I'll go ahead and entertain a motion for item number 8, our PCC amendments regarding the sign regulations.
I'll make a motion that, we accept item number 8, PCC amendments regarding, sign regulations. With findings of fact, conclusions of law and conditions, along with, the,
190,
line
190, individual
190.
incandescent.
If we strike incandescent from line 190 so that it reads individual bulb illumination or individual illumination, which is designed to be an integral part of the sign.
Okay, we could, all right.
And recommend to the city council that they accept it. That we recommend that they accept it, yes.
Perfect. We have a motion by Bob Washburn. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
I have a second by Bob Hinkie. All in favor?
Aye.
Kelly did?
Cause she can
Or-
hear it now. On the
Because
YouTube.
you can hear it now.
Can we hear her?
Shelley, if you can hear us, if you're watching, and you call back, there is no sound on Zoom or the YouTube recording. Okay, that may have been over.
Yeah, she said we fixed it. So
Yeah.
she can hear it now, but. I don't know if she hung up because it was
Okay,
echoing.
okay. Let me send her a message. Since she's been with us here for voting. Okay. Oh, all right, so she texted me for her vote. Yes, okay, everybody okay? All in favor, yes, okay, aye, we're good.
Yep.
Motion carries. Okay, thank you. And how do we want to go about that? What's your recommendation to us, Scarlett? One is the study item. And the other is, our code changes, right?
Right, I don't know if you just wanna discuss them together,
Yeah,
but then you would need to make 2 motions. One specific to the code changes
right,
that you held the public, that you're recommending forward.
okay,
And then the other one is a study item, so you'll tell me what changes to make, and then we'll bring that back
okay,
next time for a, not a public hearing, just an action item.
okay, something we would take action on. So do you want us to look at the new stuff that you have, the study item? Let us look at that and ask any questions and things like that first?
That's it.
Is that what you
That's
like?
up to you. We can,
Or do you want to deal with,
we can do with the, public hearing stuff first and then go on to the other, but they are related,
okay,
so.
yeah, it's really on the property
Well, let me
line,
ask you a
yeah,
question.
I see that.
Are you inclined to change anything in the diagram?
On the number 7 or 9?
On the single page, the page 1 of 1, the diagram that's between line number 10 and line number 11. It's PC code 1083.
Must be for item 7, right?
Yep, that's for item 7.
Okay, let me just get back, bring that up.
So if you think your discussion that you're going to have on the other part is going to bring you back to wanting to change anything on this diagram, then it would probably be best to discuss the other part and then come back to the diagram.
That's fair.
But if you don't think anything is going to change on the diagram, then you could move forward with that and then discuss the study item. That's all.
Might be safer to discuss them both at the same time, because I don't know.
That's kind of what I thought,
Yeah,
Okay,
but that's totally up to you
Okay.
guys.
well, let's start with 7 here. And the diagram, and basically. We're looking at, one of the questions I had is on that, the graph between the chart between 10 and 11, where it talks about it can be placed right on the property line if both parties agree, both homeowners. Fine if both property owners agree in writing. Would that be recorded? So that if somebody comes back,
Easements
it's
will
sold
have
or
to be
something?
recorded
Yeah.
and whatnot,
yeah,
Okay.
it says that someplace, doesn't it?
in
Oh, in the other
the
regulation?
other regulation, it goes into
Okay.
that a little bit.
Okay,
Okay. Anybody, any questions, concerns?
I've talked to Scarlett and my. It probably goes in the other one, but, I'm concerned about retaining walls that are, 6 feet or higher. That they have a fence or something. Now, Scarlett says we can't put a fence on top of the retaining wall because that makes
It may,
it part of the fence.
depending on the
height
height of the retaining wall, a
Right,
fence may take it out of. But I got to thinking about it, we do have something in the fence ordinance that on hillsides, things like that, for safety and privacy issues, fence can be higher based on topography.
okay,
So that is in the fence ordinance, so it would have to be looked at on an individual basis and see if it met those standards in the fence ordinance that allows that to be higher. But if you
okay,
put a fence directly on top of a retaining wall, the way the fence ordinance reads, the height of, it's a combined height of the fence and
Combined
the
height.
retaining wall.
that may make the fence taller than
Yeah.
it should be.
But then when I looked more at the fence ordinance, the overall fence ordinance, not just this retaining wall section, there is a section in there that talks about extending the height of a fence due to topography.
But if the fence is not attached to the retaining wall, but it's right next to it, then we're good. So that's fine. My concern is that if we've got a retaining wall that's 6 feet high, there's a fair safety issue with animals and children and adults, maybe. That it just seems practical and a safety thing to require some kind of restriction from people falling over a retaining wall. That's my opinion. I'll just put it out there, so when you talk about it, you can shoot me down, whatever you like, but
If you want me to do some homework on that, because this one is a study item that will come back to
Right.
you.
well, this,
I-
well, I wrote it down on the one that
On
we're
number 7. that we're
on number 7, but yeah, it could be on the other one as well.
Yeah,
Because that's where we
if
talk
it-
about 6 foot.
if it were to come, I can contact the building department, Cache County,
Right,
and see what their requirements, because they require, like on steps and decks and stuff like that. I can't remember if it's 30 inches or 36. I want to say 30.
I think it's
if
30.
it's less than 30 or less than 30, less than
If it's
some,
less than 30, you don't need
don't
a,
need any railing or
but
anything.
if it's higher than 30, then you do. And so maybe we would do something, we could mimic that code to be as consistent as possible, but let me do some checking and see for
I thought
sure.
it was less than that, to be honest with you. Cause 30 inches. It's
Well,
been a
that's why
while
I'll
since we've
check.
done some, yeah,
Because
but
I
that's-
don't
yeah.
know.
yeah,
Anyway, that's
Yeah.
the only thing that I wanted to bring up on this part. And it probably belongs on the other part anyway, so.
The other issue that's come up, is the height of it. How tall was that retaining wall that we had an issue with a while back? Wasn't that
Which?
like,
On Spring Creek,
On Spring Creek, well, if you ask them, it's done in 3-foot lifts. And how many do you think there are?
The one that
Well-
was on the corner of Sarah Street and Spring Creek,
not on the corner, but it's,
the
2 or
one
3
farther
houses.
up, I don't know, there's,
I think at
About
the
18
highest
feet.
point, it's between 9 to 12 feet high.
yeah,
the guy that built it said it was gonna be 20 feet high total.
there's
I
one
remember
that's,
the one where it was
I
the
think- I
driveway,
think it's about 18.
and then it dropped
looks
down.
like.
Then maybe it's 18,
yeah, that thing was huge.
way too tall.
Yeah, too dangerous. And so right now we have the height restriction, even if it's terrace, if it's a single, the max height is 8 feet. And if it's terraced, the max height that we allow it to be terraced is a combined total of 12 feet.
If it's
Yeah.
viewed from another property or a public right of way. So kind of
Mhm.
in Loretta's case, it was, the maximum would be 12 feet. But if you were doing the reverse, if you were retaining your neighbor, so if you were down in the hole.
Yeah.
And you were stepping down from your neighbor's property. As long as you couldn't see those steps from the public right of way, you could have it higher than 12. I'm not saying, and I
What if
think as
you
long as they're engineered property and we've got now that we've got the twice, what the run is twice the distance of the
The
height.
horizontal is twice the
Yeah,
height, yeah.
I think that solves a lot of problems, so I don't know I don't know that we want to allow people to end up with 50-foot walls, but I guess if they had them all
If they have
engineered
a
and they
long
were
enough
spread out over
property,
the, yeah.
enough property
that
that
they can do it, then maybe, but. Yeah,
So
I
I
think
don't know
it's
what the
something,
magic number would be, but I can see the point of having it more than 12
yes.
with our with the new rule.
I agree, because it makes it safer. If you've got double the distance horizontally,
And you can have more than double, but you
Yeah,
have to have
but you have
at
at
least.
least-
minimum, yeah. And so, yeah,
And I think the other thing that we had, so while we're on this one, and we're just down a little bit, that's where the joint, in number 8, that's where all the joint ownership is more clarified.
what page are you on?
Right below the 12-foot on page 305. The joint ownership is in number 8, and it says that must have a written agreement recorded against each affected lot regarding ongoing repair and maintenance and recorded easements if necessary. So they do have to record stuff that's going, it can't just be, because we don't want to run into the situation where neighbor A and neighbor B get together and they both agree, and then neighbor B comes in and says, I really didn't agree to that.
Right.
And so if they're going to do it, they're going to have to put their name on the line and
Record it, yeah.
go through the whole.
I think that's really important.
And that way too, whichever neighbor sells, or if they both sell, then the future buyers know
So,
that that's already
that's part of
covered
it,
and that's
yeah.
part of the deal.
Can't change it.
Yeah, so that clarifies that little paragraph over there on the other ordinance. The
Yeah.
other chart.
and just another clarification, when you're building on the property line with both parties, the height of that retaining wall can be 8 feet. So it's not limited, like if you're inside the setback, then you're limited to 3 feet, right? But if you're on the property line, both parties are doing this, then you can go up 8 feet under the current wall design. right? You're not limited to a 3 foot, so it could be, you know, if your property's kind of got a slope. I mean, your property's sloping down this way, but then at the property line, it's at different elevations. You can make them level,
But the maximum
but the
wall,
maximum would be
so
eight,
if
8 foot.
if property A was on the downside. And the exposed side was 8 feet on property A, and property B was on the upside, and the exposed side was only 4 feet on property B. That, the wall would measure from the biggest,
Right,
the biggest side,
Right.
the,
from the footing,
the tallest side of the exposed side.
from the soil where
Yeah.
it's landscaped to,
Yeah,
not the footing.
yeah, it wouldn't be an average or between
Mhm.
the two pieces of property, it would be from the
Right.
exposed
So it
side.
could be 2 feet here and 8 feet here,
Yeah.
something like that. Okay, so I just wanted to clarify that, that's the way that it's already written. That we don't, because it's on the property line, you've got both parties in agreement, then you're not stuck with a 3 foot retaining wall. Okay?
Actually, it's 3 to 6 feet, Bob.
Yeah.
3 to 6.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I had the
Well-
paper down and was
Number
looking through
7.
my glasses wrong.
Where,
So I
where,
guess if you wanna change it from
Here.
3 to 8 feet, you can. But in
well,
our,
that, right, but on
3 to 6.
on the other one, it says a single retaining wall shall not exceed 8 feet. So we need to harmonize those.
well, there's a difference between what's in the setback and what's out in the middle
Right.
of your property. So
So-
a single retaining wall out in the middle of your property,
Can be 8 feet.
And be 8 feet, but you're. So. This, if it's on the property line, it's still in the setback, but you have an agreement. Which makes it so either 6
Actually,
or 8, but
if it's on the rear or the non-street side setback. Then retaining walls greater than 6 feet, or where the exposed side of the wall faces out. Is 3 feet in height or greater, shall be subject to the same requirements as the main structure.
what does that mean?
So that means that if it was greater than 6 feet, you couldn't put it in the setback.
On the property line,
Yeah,
we've got a question, I don't know, Michael.
Yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead if you'll state your name, Loretta, please.
Loretta Buckley. So on that line, as I'm following this, in the hypothetical, if Larry Radabon and I, we have a shared property line. He has horses, and anyone that has sad livestock knows that you probably need a minimum 4 foot fence. I mean, that's a standard horse fence, right? So that 4 foot.
5 or 6.
Well, or 5, but I had horse property in Virginia, 3 acres, I put 4 foot wood board fencing. And
Okay.
I had big horses, little, and, you know, if it hits them here at their neck, most aren't going to be motivated to jump out or over. There's some that's not gonna keep anything in, but
Yeah.
normal fence, I just went down and measured his wire field fence. It is 4 feet to that top wire of barbed wire that he put, and I just went down there today to measure. That's a normal horse field fence. So under these, as I'm looking, if it was shared, and I see that that green check mark shows it's shared, it's in the setback, but would that 4 feet be allowed if it's agreed on both? I think that's kind of the big
Well, it'd be 6,
question here,
If
because it's
shared,
over
it
the
can go up
green.
to
can
6.
go up to 6.
It can go up to 6, right? Okay. So that will make a difference in the setback because it's over 3.
If it's shared.
If it's shared, okay, great. And that was my only question.
Thank you.
And
Thank
so.
you.
And another part of the question, you said that the highest part of the wall governs the entire wall? Or if we have footing, then a footing and a footing, each of those can be 6 feet. So
Are you stepping the wall?
So the hill's coming down this way, but I have uneven property at the property line. It goes,
So from the front of your property along that sideline to the back of your property's going up?
So,
He's talking about
I'm
different
talk-
heights of the wall
I'm-
across the length of the wall. If that makes
right,
sense.
so I've got the slope coming down from east to west, the whole property. But at the property line, if I'm going north to south, I have a difference in elevation. Right? So, retaining wall / fence for a horse needs to be at least 4 feet wherever it is, right? But if you're saying that it can only be 6 feet and and we get over here and it's only 6 inches, well, that's not gonna work, right? So at any point, wherever the land changes elevation, you should be able to go 6 feet or some level to be able to make it a retaining wall / fence to keep the horses in. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a continuous retaining wall, right?
Continuous I would think it would be a continuous retaining wall, and so I don't know exactly what the elevation is, but it seems like you need to be able to have.
Well, if you're following the contour of the ground, your exposed side's gonna be consistent.
Right, so if we're following the contour of the land, if the footing isn't level necessarily, if the footing follows the contour of the land, then you can go up 6 feet. And it doesn't have to be 6 feet the whole time. But it can't be over 6 feet. Okay,
Show me what you're,
okay,
Show me what
so,
you're-
so we've got ground coming down, we've got slope here. And down on the property,
okay,
the property going this way.
right,
Is a slope.
right,
So here, I need to have a footing that comes along here and then extend that footing, and then extend that footing. So this can be 6 feet, that could be 5 feet, and that can be 4
so
feet.
you're gonna keep the wall that way. that
If we
you're
wanted to
putting-
have the wall level.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
you, but,
Then you would
but
stairs
the
to it.
bottom line is the ground is here.
Yeah.
If you needed to go 6 feet from here, you could do that.
Okay.
But what Scarlett's saying is that you can't go above 6 feet over here.
Right. Here's what
You
it's,
couldn't have the top of the wall be level if you're gonna do that.
Not and have it 6 feet at the higher point.
Yeah.
at up here,
Right.
yeah, because it would be 6 feet from here, down here on the bottom. Here's what just if you wanted to understand better, the ground slope in this,
But
Right, but
you're gonna
that,
have your,
it can be 6 feet there and then whatever.
whatever
Right.
here, but no.
But if,
Okay.
if the ground were dozed and
You're all right with that,
compacted level,
Okay,
then we're good, right?
okay. All right, and that's gonna be in the item number 9. In that information, okay,
Yes. You know, that's gonna be the recommendation.
right,
The city council wanted us to go through this and give them
Yep.
some additional recommendations.
yep,
So let me ask you something.
Right,
On the shared wall, we do allow fences up to 8 feet tall, but the top 2 feet have to be transparent. So if you did a shared wall and the bottom 6 feet were solid wall and the top 2 feet were those decorative masonry things that you can see through, sometimes they look like flowers or
yeah.
geometric shapes. Would you want to consider something like that, or do you wanna just stick with the 6 feet up? If it's a wall, it's 6 feet.
I'm good to consider it. I know it's decorative block. I don't know if I want a wall made out of them,
Well, that's what I'm saying.
but it wouldn't be a retaining wall. It wouldn't be. the
yeah, couldn't retain
portion.
anything, yeah.
It'd just be
You wouldn't want
open.
that.
No, but it would actually add to the height, the exposed height.
Right,
Yeah,
but if you put a chain link fence or something on top, that would be the same thing, right? Which
it would be almost like making a fence out of the decorative blocks versus a chain link fence. those kind of things, which would
So,
increase the height.
Just stick with the 6. I'm
Yeah.
fine to just stick with the 6. I just
Yeah.
was using the fences comparison.
Yeah,
So,
I'd stick with the 6 would be my
okay.
idea.
And then what about the 12 feet?
The 12 feet max for
Paris?
Yeah.
terraced.
I think that there are probably any number of ways to calculate how that should work. But I think we've already got one calculation that says if your horizontal is double the height of your wall,
Mhm.
that provides enough stability to have to go up again safely.
So is there any limit? Are
So,
we looking, are you thinking,
well, there probably would need to be there's a natural limit based on the size of the lot.
right?
Because if you're going up 8 feet, you've got to go 16, and you go another 8 feet, that's another 16, and then you're out of, you
But
may
if
be out
you,
of space,
yeah,
but
but if you had the, if you had the
if you have a
space,
long lot, you know, it's a gradual
yeah,
thing, and you should be able to go up 20 feet.
I don't have a problem with that as long as it's established the 16 feet or whatever.
yeah,
If it's, you know, double this height, I mean, that's one way. Loretta recommended you know, something based on the percentage of grade, but I don't know.
yeah.
I don't know if that's much different than double the height. I mean, we've already got double the height for the horizontal.
So if you went, if the first wall was 2.5 feet, and then you went 5 feet, and then you did 2.5 feet, and then you went 5 more feet, and then you did 2.5 feet, and then you went 5 more feet. How many of those walls do you
Yeah.
care about?
Yeah,
Because you're only gonna have 5 feet between the tiers on those shorter
Short.
walls.
some short, small things.
So if,
Well, you can have more than that. You
right,
can
but if
have,
somebody's trying to
minimum.
maximize, if what their goal is to get as much flat yard on top as they can, they're gonna hold their steps right to the minimum.
Yes, so that they can get as much up on the top piece as flat as possible.
I
Yeah,
think the math works out, you're gonna end up at the same place no matter what. I mean,
Well, smaller steps. Just how you're just gonna
it's
do
a lot
more.
more expense to do a bunch of small walls than it is a big one, but Loretta, you
Loretta,
had.
what's your question real quick?
Loretta Buckley. So on this with the terrace, the height and vertical being double, right? We all
At the
agree,
minimum.
right, at the minimum. If we did that, then that would alleviate, I don't know how many homeowners do topo surveys before they build. I mean,
Well,
that's,
their
that's,
architect usually would do something if they're doing that.
well,
if
no,
it all
because I've worked with
fails.
architectural firms, they say, give me a topo survey, I'll design the house to what
Right.
you have currently on
Right.
the lot. Topos are a minimum of 2,000 to 3,000. That doesn't, you know, so I think giving more flexibility to all of the homeowners is if we followed that guideline of the vertical
Right,
minimum double, and then vertical, and then not say you can only do 12 feet, because there's not that many lots that
Right.
have that much room that are gonna go that high when you start getting into the double on the vertical.
Yeah.
If they do that, and then if they have the plantings, which are in here, did I have it on the paper? They have the planting, you know, requirements that you put in a drip line and plant bushes and stuff, so at least it looks pretty, I think.
right, for your terrace.
You know, that would be something too that would at least alleviate, because then you don't really know what is the grade. I'm just thinking, I know the
Yeah.
grade because I've already done the topo survey,
Right,
but I don't know how many others.
so
I
the
think they'd
real
be
question
surprised.
then that we're going back and forth on is, do we put a limit of 12 feet? And if a property owner,
No.
right?
Well, I don't wanna put a limit of 12 feet, we can put a limit, but
well, do you want even a limit?
I don't
That's
even,
what-
that's
here-
the
my
issue. I don't
question.
think we need to have a limit if we're going with the vertical and horizontal, the doubling of the horizontal.
One thing that we do want to limit is we don't want a retaining wall too close to the house. So I think we need to have, say, we gotta have, you know, some amount of distance before you have, you know, like a parking or or your structure. You don't wanna have a retaining wall just right next to your house.
Well, I would assume it'd follow the same thing. Maybe not, but that the house, if it's 6 foot wall, you're at least 12 feet. Is that right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And-
Are you saying it should be more than that?
Well, I think it says in here someplace that if you've got weight bearing, where does it say that, Scarlett?
Oh, it's gotta be designed, let's see, segmented walls. Yeah, there's something that if you've got
Well,
weight
okay,
bearing,
okay, it's number 1 on page, well, on C1, it's row 44, line 44. Retaining wall is less than 4 feet in height, is subjected to an external load such as vehicular traffic,
that's saying
pedestrian
that
traffic, or
engineering
parking.
maybe.
So that's gonna trigger engineering.
Mhm.
But this, or permanent loads such as, protection systems against slope, erosion, and adjacent structures. Okay, and engineering design may be required, and I think that is required, not may be. I would change that for sure. But we're talking about situations where there's a load, like a building, like your primary structure or something. It needs to have engineering, which so if you've got a 2.5 foot wall and you only have to go 5 feet to your house, I don't think that's a good idea. But
So you're
So-
looking
so
for a
I'm
distance
looking-
between a retaining wall and,
from a structure, primary residence, we need to have,
it'd be the same if it
20
was a
feet
shop
or
or something.
something.
So
Yeah.
what if you wanted to have in your side yard? And you had wide enough side yard so you weren't impacting the setback? What if you wanted to have a room that walks out from your side yard? So a door walking out, so instead of a window well, you would create an entryway with stairs that go up. Part of that retaining wall is going to be right next to your house. And it's only gonna be 4 feet away or 5, depending on how you want your steps. The reason why I'm saying this, cause I've seen them, right?
Mhm.
I've run up
Right,
and down.
no, I understand what you're saying,
So-
yeah.
So those are retaining walls
Is
as
that
well.
considered a retaining wall?
Yeah,
Yes, it is.
But it's angled. Well, maybe that way too, I guess. I'm just trying to think of
it
how.
comes out from the house and then it goes down the side of the house, depending on how your steps are doing. I mean, sometimes they could both,
Yeah.
it could be kind of a trail
They
coming
push
out.
right out if they can turn,
Yeah,
yeah.
but
So it's
Would
gotta
have
be
some.
engineered. I mean, an
Yeah.
engineer's smart enough to not do something stupid, isn't he? See?
So I think on 46, we make it an engineering designed shall be required.
Yeah.
And then 47, if an engineering design is required, the engineering design shall be specific for the 47. The engineering design shall be specific to the site and not a generic standard design.
yes, because we have seen
Yeah, go on the internet.
cut and
find
paste
a-
signs
Yeah,
or designs included in the packet.
right.
So that, no, they have not done
Engineer.
their own engineering for the site.
Site specific.
They've looked at a sample of a wall that's been engineered, which may or may not apply to their site. But if I can Google the same exact design, how do I know that they've
Yeah.
Engineering.
looked at it for the specific site? That's why we want it to be site specific. We don't just want Google
Right.
illustrations.
Okay,
Okay.
so maximum, I don't know if we want a
I don't
maximum
think we wanna put a max.
other than it's gotta be at least double.
Yeah, the
The
vertical
height.
and doubling the horizontal,
As your terracing.
right? For terrace,
Terracing.
and if you have the space, I don't think there's a height issue. I mean, I don't think there should be a maximum.
Yes.
Especially if we're gonna let people keep building on the side of the mountain, it's getting steeper,
Yes.
so.
Yeah. Okay,
Okay,
any other issues?
so no maximum, but
Yeah, we'll just say terracing of retaining walls is permitted where justified by topographic conditions, period.
okay. And. Okay, are we just moving on to another section here?
Do you think Shelley can hear me? She should be able to. So Shelley, if you can hear me, I wanted to check with you and see if you had any comments, questions, or concerns. We're working on the review, on item number 9. You guys are doing great. Wish I was there. Okay, sounds great. Thank you, Shelley. She didn't really say that. But anyway, okay. Terrace walls, we look at that. On the key, we've got that. Bob, did you have anything else?
Yes, I
That you
do.
caught that you could address?
Okay. Um. So on number 5, row, line 62. Okay, for terraced walls where the exposed space is seen by a public right of way. We need to landscape it. But it appears that that's the only option is to landscape it. And I would like to expand that to see that it could be utilized for a sports court or an orchard, a garden, some other kind of thing, an auxiliary building, something that provides for erosion control and is not unsightly, I guess it is. What we don't want is just a bunch of bare ground that's gonna be washed away or grow weeds. But if somebody wants to use it for a swimming pool or a pickleball court, tennis court, basketball court, something like that, and that should be an option rather than just having vegetation in there. Does that make sense?
It does to me. I was thinking artificial turf, whatever, but I thought there should be some other options.
Should be other options,
I
yeah.
agree.
So I don't know.
So you want me to say if using live vegetation, it would need to be done with a drip system to control
Yeah,
doing that. But then if they use artificial turf,
something.
or if they use
Zero scape.
some zero scape, or if they use, if they put the pickleball court in, or if they put a small gazebo or something, then they just have to stabilize, the ground
Yes,
has to have
something that
stabilization.
prevents erosion.
Something that prevents.
Okay,
I agree.
Okay,
Yeah, regardless of what they put in, there's gotta be that. And if they're doing a
part of the
pickleball
reason
court.
but part of the reason that we
Yeah.
wanna encourage them not to use a lot of water
right,
is to not add compromise to the,
right, that risks
Down the
compromise
wall.
to
Right.
the retaining wall.
yeah,
It's hydraulic pressure that causes the problem.
so.
okay,
So. Moving on to, line 79. Submittals, the following documents. engineer of the state of Utah should be submitted with each retaining wall building permit application and recorded. I'd like to make sure that it has to be recorded. And I think it probably does if we go on over to line 158 to 163, 162. I think those lines are really critical where the design engineer is required to inspect as a frequency of inspection during the construction of the wall, and then certifies in G, final report is certified, and so that is recorded and available for property owners, buyers, and sellers to have access to that information. Which I think is I think that's really critical, and I'd like to have it recorded up here on E, the submittals. Any comments about that? That's the recommendation that would like to make.
So where would that go then? Sorry.
So in row 78, 79, just building permit application and must be recorded.
I don't think we want the application recorded.
Is that, that's the application?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the application.
Okay.
The final
That's,
report.
yeah,
Final
that's
report,
fine.
you could say that
The
it
report
include all engineering drawings and everything, because this is saying he needs to, his inspection and final report, his inspection, so he's providing a list of the inspections and when he did them, all through the thing, report from the design engineer, all of that he states this stuff, but I think also that he includes his engineering drawings, final engineering drawings, if there's some modifications along the way, but that all of that information has to be submitted into the final report.
And that has to be recorded and available. Somehow it needs to be available for a buyer or a seller. Or
Well, if
city.
it's recorded, then it's public record, so they could go and get a copy of that.
I'll have to ask the recorder
Yeah,
if he's
if
willing
that's-
to record all those extra kind of
Yeah.
documents.
Right.
Yeah,
I don't know what their rules
yeah,
are,
that's true, because, yeah,
but I
Well,
can find out for sure, and if he says, oh yeah, we can do that.
well,
then-
I would like to recommend that to the city council. If you find something else you can recommend to them that they don't have to do it or shouldn't, but I would like to have that in our recommendation. This is a really important part of
Okay,
this whole
But
thing.
this one's just a study item, so you're gonna see
Yeah,
these changes, and so I have
Yeah.
time to do that homework.
Right,
and bring
we're,
back to
yes,
us.
we are making suggestions to the city council. They asked us to review this and give them ideas. Right?
so you'll make these, you'll add this stuff in, will it come back to us, or will it go to the, no, it'll come back to us,
One more time.
and then it'll be an action item, an action item thing. So, yeah,
Okay.
so I think that all sounds
It
good.
won't be a public hearing, but it will
Yeah.
be an action item.
Another thing I would like to recommend, and when I talked to the city council about it, I made this recommendation. From line 80 through line 149 is a lot of technical stuff that really, I don't believe belongs in the code. I believe it belongs in your manual, your kind of like our T intersection. It belongs in the manual specifications and requirements, but not necessarily in the code. All this is a clutter in the code and needs to be someplace else. And so I'd like to recommend that as well.
You would be surprised how many engineers say, where is it in your code?
Yeah, why do I have
The
to do
code
that?
says, go to the specifications manual for specific items. I mean, if it needs to be in the code, then I wanna go back to when we talked about the T intersections and have that in the code as well, because we were
The T intersections are a
it's a
completely
safety,
different
safety
idea.
thing, but, and we don't need to talk about it right now,
Right,
but all this, I mean, that's my recommendation.
okay.
It spells it out of what they need to do. It would kind of be like,
It gets into a lot of detail.
We have to detail,
yeah,
when we have an application required, we have to detail in code what is a complete submittal with that application.
So then I would suggest that we go through this a little better as far as what is required. Because this, I sat down with Loretta and we went word for word on the code for Draper City,
Well, interesting enough, I didn't use Draper. I used a couple other,
through somebody
3 or
else.
4 other cities, but I didn't use Draper, so it's interesting that.
Well, it is word for word, but
but they,
But-
so they require, so they have the code in, they have the,
Well, they have-
the detail in the code
yeah,
as well,
it looks like it,
so.
but I wouldn't say that Draper's the gold standard.
That's why I didn't use them.
But it's word for word. But there are things in here, and Loretta pointed out to me, and you know, I'm not an engineer, but she's had 2 of these engineering studies done, significant engineering studies done. And the terms that are listed in here are not called out in either of those studies. And I would suggest that this may be old information, and we may need to go to a more up-to-date source of engineering standard.
Maybe what we do is recommend that our city engineer review it.
He
Yeah.
has
Actually,
reviewed
tell
this.
me which terms aren't common.
Loretta, you probably know better than I do, but I think it has to do with the shear and the
There's things about triaxial shear, the different shears, the,
tests.
I'm just reading it really quickly.
So soils may include, but is not limited to, doesn't say they have to, it says may include, but is not limited to. Unit weights, direct shear tests, triaxial shear tests, and unconfined compression tests.
Right, but. And that is true, your point noted, on the may include, I'm thinking, wait, where is the stuff about?
I was looking at line 93.
Right, I just saw that, I'm trying to, I don't have my copy from home, I apologize, I grabbed a second copy.
Was it
I think-
Atterberg limits for cohesive soils? Cause I looked that up and that is a standard, according to the internet, Atterberg is a standard regulation. I wasn't familiar with that particular one.
Well, what about number 3, soil classification testing shall be submitted for all direct shear, triaxial shear tests if a proctor is completed. Okay, well, okay, so the proctor tests are there, laboratory testing.
Well, it's gotta come back, so if you
Yeah.
go home and look at your thing, just email me,
Okay,
cause then I can talk to our engineer about specific things and say, what do you think about this?
all right, I'll do that.
Okay, all right, that'd be good. If you feel like this has to be in the code, I'm just one dude, I don't know.
If we're going to require something be, so that's new. The state code changed last year. That's a change from last year. If we're going to require a complete application, we have to list in the code what a complete application has to contain.
Okay. Okay,
All right,
so row 120. Rock walls shall be designed in general accordance with. How about if we get rid of those kinds of words? In accordance with is a better way. I mean, if we're gonna have a standard 120,
120.
get rid of things like in general and may be required. Because when you say may be required, it means you don't have to do it. If.
Well, you
if
might
you're a
not,
developer,
depending on your
Yeah.
soil type.
well, then,
That's why it may be required. I mean, that's why they are gonna do the soils test. And depending what they find, they may be required to do some of that other stuff.
That's very true. I've just gone through this down in southern Utah. The soil engineering, the soil report, geotechnical, all that stuff. And depending on what came out of the ground, determined we had to dig another 3 feet down and 8 feet wide to see, and depending on then compact it all and test again and things like that. So it really has to do with what that soils report says. And there's a lot of stuff that's required that it be in there. So maybe another one, just because that was intense. I don't know if you looked at it, but that's for Iron County. And that was, I mean, their requirements were just spelled out like this is. And that.
The
those
one that
soil
I, the
reports-
one that I looked at, actually Max did have, he said, let's take some of that out. That's way too
Yeah.
technical. So, and they were in their code.
Yeah,
Those other several cities that I looked at had it more spelled out, but Max felt like we were almost designing it within the code. So he
Right.
said, let's take some of this out.
that's what
So-
it feels like.
So we left the more generic things so that the engineer has to, but we felt like we left enough that the engineer is not gonna look at it and say, oh, they're not really requiring that, I don't have to do it. No, if the soils come back that you do have to do the shear testing, then you better do it.
yeah,
And so we tried to leave enough in to get a safe product, but and took enough out that we didn't have, that we weren't designing it, writing the book for them.
right.
Because if it's one of those things, if A happens, then you do B. If B happens, then you do Z. I mean, so to write all of that in is kind of tricky. So we tried to just be as generic as possible to give that engineer the leeway to do what they need to do. But by the way, you are going to meet certain standards. So we did take quite a bit out, actually.
And if it needs to be in the code, then. Guess it needs to be in the code, right? It just seems like it clutters up the code. But if we can't point to a standards document in the code, and makes it required, I don't understand that.
Well, that's because home builders and developers didn't want to have to look through multiple books to figure out what they needed to turn in with an application. They wanted it spelled out very, very clearly what we want turned in with an application. Now, they realize in their designing, they may have to look into those other books, but to figure out just exactly what they've got to turn in with their application, they want it in the code, just right there to see.
Okay,
So on Scarlett's commented, there's a lot of info.
You'll have to come back up to the microphone, please, so it can be heard and recorded.
You're right.
Thank you.
Loretta Buckley. To back up Scarlett's comment, there's a lot of information on line 120 where it says rock walls shall be designed in accordance with the rockery wall design and construction guidelines or the current FHWA standard. That's the Federal Highway Administration. That document is 176 pages long. I thought I would try and print it out, but it was too much. I have not been able to read through it all.
Yeah.
So I do agree. you know, there is a lot of information, and there's even a lot more out
Yeah.
there. It's just hard. You know, to make sure that we're meeting everything when it's so detailed.
Well, and I think the real key that's gonna have the teeth in this thing is the item G down to line 158. But what's being required that engineer, he's really putting himself, his firm and everything on the line that it was done right. And here's all the times I was there like I was supposed to be, and here's what we did, and here's all the reports. And we did everything that we were supposed to do. And then the idea of having it recorded, if that's a possibility, or that it is available and so forth. So I think that is a great thing, because there's all kinds of things that can, everybody point to everybody else.
I
so
do
that
agree
was
with that when I've got 2 engineering firms on my lot.
Right,
And the big discussion between the 2 of them is who was going to be the final engineer signing off and issuing the
Right.
final report, and actually even testing my native soil. And so they came to that agreement and said, we're going to do all of that when we did it, and they went down and actually tested natives. So I had the 2 firms and the 2 senior engineers. But they both came to the agreement of who was and who was going to make sure that the standards and the guidelines were followed. So I understand this and wanting to make sure that things are done accordance to the guidelines that are out there. Cause I'm in the middle of that right now.
yeah, you're going through
So
it.
we have
Perfect.
done that.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much for that. So, okay, so I think anything else, or can we move on? If nobody has any other questions on our study item,
Knowing that it will come back
Back,
after I
yes,
implement
yeah.
these changes.
and there's a
We'll
couple
have
of things
another
we're gonna look up, and we'll have some more to do. And so let's go back to item number 7. Unless, if everybody's through with item 9.
Okay, did we decide that we're gonna address the fence requirement at some point in some way?
Yes, I'm gonna look at our existing code and see how that's written on that topography
Okay,
to see if it's already addressed
okay.
or if we need to do something more.
Okay.
And then if we need to do something more, it'll be in one or the other of these.
Yeah.
documents. Okay, okay, good.
Okay, sounds good. So if everybody's okay, no more discussion needed for item number 7. I would entertain a motion.
Bob, it's your turn.
Or Shelley, but I don't know if she's.
Hang on, I guess I'm gonna go back to yours.
Hold it, can you tell if she's still in the loop? Okay. Okay, I'm here, yes. All right, she's all ready. Before your motion. Okay. Or wait for the motion. You want that?
You know, are you ready?
Yeah.
I was waiting for you to
No,
say.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
go ahead.
Yep, we're ready.
I don't know, I probably do need help, but
Go ahead.
anyway,
Go ahead.
I make a motion that we approve item number 7, PCC amendments, retaining walls, use and construction.
Can I help you?
Yes,
Make a motion that you recommend the city council.
oh, that's
approve.
true, okay. Thank you.
Yep.
I'll make that same motion that Scarlett just said. That we recommend to the city council that they approve those regulations that I just said about the retaining walls, based on the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and conditions. What else do I need to say?
That
I
works.
think we're good.
Okay.
I don't think there are any changes.
Yeah. We're
I
gonna
don't think
just
there were any changes on that.
Okay, I have a motion
Second,
by Bob Hinkie, and I have a second by Bob Washburn. All in favor?
aye.
Shelley votes aye. So,
Did you vote?
yes. The motion passes. So Thank you very much, everyone. All right,
And if I can say one other thing, I'd like to say thanks to Scarlett for spending so much time with me going through these things and, putting up with all my pestering her about what things mean and
No
stuff.
worries.
It is very helpful to go through it and understand.
working through all the few little issues we had. Tyler and Scarlett, as always, thank you very much. Thank you, Loretta, being in attendance and helping us understand some of the challenges you have and so forth. So if everybody's all right, I would entertain a motion that we close our meeting.
I motion that we close the meeting.
Good. Second.